Once upon a time, Assassin's Creed wasn't just another franchise, it was the franchise, a mix of historical fiction, philosophical depth, and stylish parkour that no other studio dared to attempt. I still remember booting up Assassin's Creed 2 for the first time, the music, and Florence and Ezio climbing across rooftops. And of course, that sense that Ubisoft had just reinvented the open world. Those early games had something rare. Identity. You weren't just running around and stabbing people for fun. Well, I did a little bit. But you were part of something bigger. You were part of the Brotherhood. And that's what made Assassin's Creed special. From Assassin's Creed 2 to Brotherhood, and you know what, even Revelations, you can feel that Ubisoft is crafting a cohesive universe, a saga, if you will. And then of course we have the modern day segments with Desmond, which explore the deep lore of the first civilization, but you know, it was a bit messy. So yeah, but it had ambition, I'll give it that. And you know what, even the side content, reinventing Rome, rebuilding your Brotherhood, training new assassins, this felt like an extension of the Creed itself. It wasn't necessarily filler, it was more of a world-building mechanic. And the parkour, the parkour. The rooftops were your playground. The narrow streets of Damascus, the tight corners of Florence, and the slanted rooftops of Paris. These weren't just pretty environments, they were designed to be climbed, explored, and mastered. And when you do play these older titles, you don't generally touch the ground, unless you want to, but the rooftops are essentially your domain for the entire game. For a long time, Assassin's Creed was one of those rare series that balanced depth and accessibility perfectly. You had action, stealth, story, history, and you know what, even a sprinkle of conspiracy theories in there. But then, suddenly, everything changed. The downfall didn't happen overnight, it was gradual. It was as if water was slowly rising and you didn't notice until it was too late. You could argue that the cracks started to show around Assassin's Creed Unity, a game that on paper should have been the pinnacle of the franchise with gorgeous visuals, intricate parkour, dense crowds, and a return to a single city design. It was Ubisoft's attempt to evolve the original formula, but this is where we all remember what really happened. Unity was broken at launch, NPCs were missing faces, characters were sinking into the floor, and the frame rates tanked harder than Arno's love life. And the memes were brutal, and the backlash was even worse. Overnight, Assassin's Creed went from being Ubisoft's golden child to being a global punchline. And that's where things went wrong, just not technically. Ubisoft looked at this failure of Unity and didn't think, we just need to, polish up the game before we release it. Instead, they thought that the formula was broken itself, and in that decision, that one shift in thinking, Assassin's Creed had changed forever. What followed from Unity was a full-blown crisis. Assassin's Creed Syndicate tried to keep that old spirit alive, and it was being developed alongside Unity, so they couldn't really change focus right then and there, but it had twin protagonists, London setting, and a gang system very close to what we had in AC Brotherhood. And you know what? It was that last real taste of classic parkour. But at this point, the damage was already done, sales had underperformed, players were skeptical, and Ubisoft just kind of hit the panic button. And the result was Assassin's Creed Origins. Now don't get me wrong, Origins is beautiful, and I might say that it's my favourite in the RPG series. But Egypt looks stunning, Bayek is one of the best protagonists in the series, and it made sense narratively as the beginning of the Creed. But Origins also marks the point where Assassin's Creed stopped being about the assassins. Instead, it became a full-blown RPG. Suddenly, you weren't just a silent killer bound by the tenets of the Brotherhood, you were a loot-grinding mercenary slashing your way through enemies that are 10 levels higher than you are. And also, you weren't blending into crowds or meticulously planning assassinations, you were farming XP to unlock that next ability on a massive skill tree. And look, I don't hate RPGs, I want to put it out there, I don't, but Assassin's Creed was never meant to be one. Its DNA was stealth and precision, not trying to maximize your XP or getting the highest rarity of loot. With Origins, Ubisoft opened the door ever so slightly to the RPG, but with Odyssey, it kicked that door down. By the time that Odyssey came around, you could romance like half of Greece, wield god-tier abilities, and fight mythological beasts, which is cool, yes, but Assassin's Creed, not even close. The irony is that Odyssey barely even featured assassins. The concept of the Brotherhood, the thing that the series was built on, was shoved into a DLC, as if it was just some kind of optional afterthought. And that's the tragedy of it all. The Brotherhood was once the heart of the series, and has now just become a background piece of noise. If there is one thing that really defines Assassin's Creed for me, it's the way that you move through the world. The flow, that seamless dance across rooftops, over beams, through windows, it was the soul of the experience. The parkour system wasn't just a feature, it was a core fundamental pillar of the series' identity. But in these newer titles, that elegance is gone. The cities in Odyssey, Origins, Valhalla, Shadows are gorgeous, no question about it, but they're not designed for movement. They're vast and impressive, but lack the rhythm and flow, the architectural density that made parkour fun in earlier titles. When you think of older titles like Jerusalem, Venice, Rome, Paris, they were tight, vertical, and layered. Every single wall, every rooftop, all had purpose. Now it's just endless flat terrain that you ride your horse around to, and sparse buildings that serve more as set dressing than as an actual playground for parkour. The newer games might look breathtaking, but there is a clear distinction between looking alive and feeling alive. Even exploring Valhalla's English countryside is pretty, sure, but it doesn't spark that same joy as sprinting across rooftops or diving into haystacks. And I really thought that initially this was all just a nostalgia thing, but I don't think it's the nostalgia talking, it's the design of the games that is talking to me. Ubisoft has traded precision for scale. They have expanded the map, but shrunk its soul. One of the best parts of early games was that sense of belonging. You weren't just Ezio or Altair or Arno or Connor, you were part of a lineage, a cause, if you will. When you built the Brotherhood in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, recruiting new assassins, training them and sending them on missions, it made you feel more connected to something bigger, and that element is almost entirely gone now. For modern Assassin's Creed games, they treat you more like a lone wanderer, a mercenary, a Viking, a demigod, rather than a single member of the Assassin Order. Even Valhalla, which does technically feature hidden ones, it sidelines them so much that they might as well just not exist. They're just the background, they're just kind of there. The contrast between then and now is almost night and day. The old games were about unity. Get it? And the new ones, they're about power, they're about leveling up, and they're about XP and side quests. And of course, we have Assassin's Creed Mirage. That was supposed to be the return to form. And Ubisoft did promise to classic fans that they had not forgotten their roots. There was a smaller map, a more focus on stealth, and an actual emphasis on assassinations and the assassins. It sounded perfect, to be honest. And to its credit, Mirage is good. It's not revolutionary by any matter of the word, but it actually has a clear acknowledgement that the franchise needed to recover its soul. Basim's story, the return to classic parkour routes and dense city streets, it felt like a love letter to the early days. Mirage reminded us of what made Assassin's Creed special in the first place: simplicity, focus, and purpose. And when I say that Mirage isn't perfect, initially it was made as a DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, so some of the gripes in regards to parkour and systems that I have for Valhalla are present in Mirage, so that's the only reason why Mirage isn't the best of the best, because it still carries over some of those newer modern systems that classic fans don't really appreciate. But of course, Ubisoft had to announce their next Assassin's Creed, that being Assassin's Creed Shadows, and with it, all that progress seemed to evaporate overnight. Shadows looks phenomenal, Japan is stunning, and the dual protagonist concept is cool. But the moment that you learn it's just another RPG style Assassin's Creed, it's hard not to feel that familiar ping of disappointment. It's as if Ubisoft took one step towards its roots with Mirage and then just sprinted in the opposite direction. You can't help but wonder if they even understand what made people love the franchise in the first place. And of course, you can't forget that in Assassin's Creed Shadows, the story doesn't really matter in regards to what protagonist you play as, so there's not even a definitive way to approach the story. You just kind of do it based on which character you prefer, which 100% is not the way they should have taken this. Look, it's so easy to look at these new games and just admire their size and scale, but bigger doesn't always mean better. When every mission is stretched across miles of terrain and every upgrade requires hours of grinding, the emotional pacing of that game collapses. You lose that intimate rhythm, that sense of every assassination, every leap, every mission is just around the corner. There's no tension when you make everything massive. And the real issue is that Assassin's Creed stopped valuing the small details, the little moments like eavesdropping on a target, learning their routine, striking at the perfect time. Those were the heartbeats of the series. And now it's just replaced by sprawling quest lines that could have belonged in any other open world RPG. And I say this a lot in regards to a lot of modern games, but the experiences in the newer Assassin's Creeds don't feel handcrafted, they just feel like built-in checklists. And that's essentially what they are. I've been an Assassin's Creed fan since the very beginning. I've seen its rise, its fall, and its attempts to reinvent itself more time than any other series has tried to, and maybe that's just why it hurts to see what it's become. Don't get me wrong, I still play them. I still get that spark of excitement when I hear the theme music swell or you hit a synchronization point in the distance, but now it's just different. The old Assassin's Creed games made me feel like an assassin. The new ones just make me feel like I'm pretending to be one. And that's the tragedy. The soul is still there, but it's just kind of buried under new systems like leveling and loot, and it's really hard to find that soul anymore. And it's so unclear right now if Ubisoft is trying to please one group of fans or the other, or if they're just trying to please everyone. But in doing so, they've lost what made Assassin's Creed unique. And to be honest, they've just gone a bit rogue. Do you get it? Still, I can't help but hold out hope. Maybe Mirage wasn't the end, but perhaps a new beginning if Ubisoft keep wanting to make these smaller experiences. And maybe one day Ubisoft will realise that Assassin's Creed isn't about power scaling, it's not about XP bars, it's not about looting, but instead it's about freedom, parkour, stealth, and the Brotherhood. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.